The Ad Hoc Joint Committee on Floods is conducting an oversight visit in KZN following recent floods in the province. On Monday, the committee received a briefing from the Presidency and the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs on the recovery program. Both the Presidency and Department admitted government is experiencing various challenges that include incapacity as it carries out its relief and recovery program in the areas affected by the floods. The committee will be in the province until Monday. Now we take you back to our reporter Vusi Khumalo, who is covering the story from KwaDukuza. Vusi, what's the latest update now with the Ad Hoc Committee?
Yes, the Oversight Committee has descended on KwaZulu-Natal to evaluate the progress made so far insofar as the reconstruction and rebuilding process is concerned. Just first of all, the Premier of the province gave a detailed briefing to the committee, saying that government has also come on board, especially the province. Even it did say, make the mention that so far there's been no allocation of funds yet coming from externally. So far they've been working as government of KwaZulu-Natal, but there is cooperation from the national government as well as other stakeholders in order to ensure that they help people who are very needy at this point in time. Now I'm with the co-chairperson of the Ad Hoc Joint Committee on Flood Disaster Relief and Recovery, Mr. Cedric Frolik, who's here with other political parties as well, made up of the political parties such as the AFF, the DA, as well as the IFP. Mr. Frolik, so far you have made a visit to an area under Umlala as a shower area. What have you made of your assessment so far? How is the situation?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. We were quite taken aback yesterday to see the local conditions of the people in especially Ward 1, Eshawi, that they are subjected to. The flood that came actually made the conditions worse. It is a rural community where some of their shelters have totally collapsed. They don't have a place that they can call home anymore. But we do acknowledge the intervention with the temporary residential units that are being put in place, also to see to it there's a fresh water supply as well as some power connectivity in the area, but they need more than that. And what is quite striking is that we cannot leave this to the municipality only. And in this morning's briefing from the Premier, it also becomes clear that we need the different government departments to act faster to reach our people on the ground. Secondly, what we also need to ensure is that the funding that has been announced by the Minister of Finance must be unlocked as soon as possible to ensure that the resources reach the most vulnerable communities on the ground. Okay.
Perhaps we know that you are still to do other site visits here in KwaDukuza, Tongat and other areas. Are you happy so far with what you have seen already? Has the provincial government helped people? Are you satisfied so far, or is there still an area of improvement?
The provincial government is doing what it can. The Premier gave us a very honest and frank explanation of what is currently taking place. There are interventions currently underway to ensure that the road network is being restored, as well as other services that are there. But the province on its own, even with its own contingency funds that's in reserve, cannot do it on its own. They need more assistance from the national government. And in that respect, we are imploring on the Premier and the province, and it is part of the work that we are also doing here, to do more and to engage the national government further so that the much needed resources that are required will be unlocked. Just as an example, here in KwaDukuza, the presentation that we are receiving says this municipality alone needs just more than R1 billion to restore the infrastructure that has been damaged during the floods. So we'll have to look at other mechanisms as well to put more resources into the pot for disposal to the people of KwaZulu-Natal if we want to ensure that within a short period of time we can restore some of the most basic services that our people require.
Speaking of the funds, the Premier also made a mention that there's been no allocation as yet. When are we going to see these monies being pulled from different sources and coming to effect here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal?
We have scheduled a meeting with the Minister of Finance so that he can give us a briefing on their time frames as well as the requirements that is there from the different municipalities in the province. That meeting is scheduled for next week when they return to Cape Town, but we will implore on the Minister of Finance by ensuring that all the necessary safeguards are in place, but to speed up the process for assistance to this area.
And there's been complaints from all sectors saying that government should be transparent in how the money is being spent.
Government must be transparent right from municipal to provincial and national government level. The Auditor General is also playing a role in this, but so must the accounting officers in the municipalities and provincial departments must equally do their work. But what is also more important is in the briefing that we've received from the Premier is there's also significant amounts of funding that's made available by other bodies such as the US Embassy, the National Lottery and others that is being spent in the province, but we do not see yet the change that is to be effected on the ground. So what is required now is better coordination in terms of what these NGOs are doing, what the municipalities, provincial government is doing, so that we can get an accurate picture to ensure that double dipping doesn't take place.
Okay, we are to visit Tongaat and other areas. Have you perhaps gotten the briefing so far as to the extent of the damage in those areas?
When we visit Tongaat after this meeting, we'll get a clearer indication. What we do know is it's extensive damage that has been caused to the water plant that is there. Thereafter, we will also go to the Port of Durban, where some capacity has been restored and they are functioning. But it is important for us to get a clear indication as the turnaround time to restore the Tongaat water facility. That's of utmost importance to ensure that our people get the quality water that they need for their basic living needs.
Some of the members of the committee bemoaned the fact that there is no capacity, especially from the smaller municipalities such as this one, even the metro, of dealing with some of the challenges the province is facing. They also mentioned lack of counseling for the flood victims. What have you perhaps will be your thinking around that?
Well, we as a delegation will be discussing the issues that has been raised now in the meeting. But we need all our different government departments, whether it's municipal, provincial or national government, to prioritize this matter. This must be priority number one, so that we can focus on this. Yes, we do understand there's competing priorities, but we need to restore a sense of some normality to the worst affected areas. In terms of counseling, there is a role to be played by the Department of Social Development, both in the province and at national level. And also what our people need is to physically see things are happening in the areas. That is the greatest way to inspire people to say that indeed the government is doing something. And KZN government, as I've said, is doing their best under these circumstances. All the political parties in the meeting is acknowledging that, but a lot more support to the province is required.
There's also another concern that was ventilated inside the chambers during the session, that it will seem like other communities, such as the affluent ones, are being prioritized at the expense of the poor communities who are still being sheltered in community halls.
We believe that human life has equal value, whether it is in affluent suburbs or in the poorer areas. And that is what we will focus on after our meeting here, to go to the different communities and to really to see the interventions that are there. And that's why we require closer collaboration and coordination between the NGOs and with government at municipal and provincial level, so that where the most need is, that is where the resources must be directed to.
Thanks a lot for your time, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. There's the co-chairperson of the Ad Hoc Joint Committee on Flood Disaster Relief and Recovery, saying that the province of KwaZulu-Natal has done its best, but as the national government, they are helping as well, lending a helping hand to ensure that the needy do get assistance in this time of need. It's back to you now, police.
Vusi, I know you've also mentioned there, as with the interview with Mr. Frolik there, you spoke about the Auditor General. I mean, Tsakani Maluleke this week also spoke about how there was going to be real-time audit of the funds. Interestingly enough, we're also getting a report that she's going to release into the KZN flood funds, I think around sometime in August. Do you think this is likely, to be that winning beacon to say that this is what is going to be the winning recipe to ensure that those funds are used the way they're supposed to be used?
Yes, all eyes are on this disaster relief fund, emergency fund, of which everyone is talking about, to ensure that the money is being spent. There is transparency and accountability from the officials or the office bearers, especially regards to government, because they also do know that the communities are waiting, and also they will have to be seen as people who are accountable with the monies being sourced from different quarters. He spoke of the lottery fund. He spoke of the Tongat Hewlett, who are also coming on board with other private companies to ensure that there is a private-public partnership that is also seen to be doing its work to ensure that the communities in need do get assistance, especially with regards to those who are still housed in community halls and churches, and also people who are very needy. They don't have the basics. We've spoken to a number of flood victims who did say that they haven't got anything. They've also raised their funding in order to bury their loved ones, and also they do not have anything such as the counseling, of which was also one of the concerns being raised in this session, that so many people have not had an opportunity to be counseled about the floods that has wreaked havoc, leaving a trail of destruction in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, having claimed more than 448 lives and 88 people who are still reported missing in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. But with Durban being the hardest hit with the recent floods wreaking havoc at Umdloti area, where this current session being held in KwaDukuza, the oversight committee will then from here move to do other site visits here in KwaDukuza in surrounding areas. There are bridges and also roads that are destroyed here, and also some communities in community halls. They will do visit those people there, and also move to Tongat area, where a water treatment plant was destroyed, and it will take much longer, more than 4 months, to also ensure that it does get fixed. And also a number of people there are still without water. That's one of the areas that's still without water. We know that so many communities have had water restored in those communities in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Let's see, and perhaps see if we can get a comment from the KwaZulu-Natal Premier, Mr. Sihle Zikalala, who was conducting a presentation with regards to the floods in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, being invited by the Ad Hoc Joint Committee on Flood Disaster and Relief and Recovery here at KwaDukuza, where the current session is taking place here. As I did make a mention that they've been here from yesterday, and they'll be here throughout, up to ensure that the work done by the province of KwaZulu-Natal is also being transparent. Speaking of transparency, now I'm joined by the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Sihle Zikalala. Thank you, sir, for your time. We know that you are very busy. Perhaps so far, are you satisfied with how the visit has been conducted?
Yes, we are satisfied, and as the province, we have said even before, we remain transparent and accountable to the people of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, and therefore the work that is done by the committee is appreciated. And it's not that they are only monitoring, but in some cases they are also providing advices and suggestions on how to improve the situation. This is the situation that has been very devastating to a number of people in the province. and therefore it needs collective effort to ensure that we emerge and emerge stronger.
Another issue that has become a hot potato is the allocation of funds, of which you did say there's been no allocation of that so far. If you can just expand on it.
No, the issue of 1 billion, it's not that there has been an allocation that has come to the province. It must be clear. What has been availed by the national are specific grants that are always part of the national budget, which as the province and municipalities we need to apply for in line and in terms with the Disaster Management Act. And we have submitted our application to that extent.
So there's been no response so far?
Well, it's an issue that we're working on. Of course, we are in touch with the ministers nationally, Minister Dlamini Zuma and Minister Mbalula, Minister of Human Settlement, Minister Kupai, Minister of Social Development, and the President. So we are working together on this.
So we are also seeing the private-public partnership coming on board, helping government where it can. What can you tell us about that so far? Because we can see that roads and bridges are being constructed and repaired. You also gave us a time frame of when things will be sorted out, especially with regards to the roads between Durban as well as Tongat and Ballito.
Yes, it is important that we sustain this partnership between the communities and government. And as government, we are prepared to do all we can to support the people. We want to thank those who have availed support, who can support, and they are playing quite a critical role. We want to assure the people that M4, we are working to ensure that at least M4 between Tongat and Durban is working at least in the next 2 weeks, and would want to see also N2 in the south fixed within a week. I think that would be completed, and we have specific time frames for all of these projects that needs to be done in terms of addressing the impact of disaster.
There's also another concern regarding the water situation at Tongat area, Tongat area, the water treatment plant. Do you have a time frame for that? And also other breaches regarding the N2 and 3, Umkababa. I'm told one lane has been opened so far.
One lane is opened, but an additional 2 lanes will be completed soon. And when I say soon, I mean 2 weeks is the maximum. The bridges, as I said, the bridge between Umdloti and Durban is under construction and will be finished soon, completed soon. The infrastructure as a whole, we are attending to it, and we will ensure that it is at a good level as well.
We can see that so many road infrastructure that's been destroyed between Tongat and Durban, or even up to here in KwaDukuza. And I'm told you also made a mention about removing a waiver on toll gates. When are we going to see that?
It is done. Right now, people who are using toll gates are not paying. We spoke with Minister Mbalula. He conceded to that request, and we are working on fixing the road. And once we finish fixing those roads, then that waiver will be lifted. Then people will start paying again.
Okay. Just perhaps the last question from the N3 accident that took place early this morning. What can you tell us? We are told that about 11 people died in that accident. If you can just give us a soundbite on that.
Yes, it is one of those accidents that break hearts, and we want to send our sympathies to all relatives and families of the deceased. We have a team that is on the ground assessing the situation and working to ensure that those who need support to hospitals are taken to hospitals, and we are going to get more report during the day. Thank you.
That's the Premier of the province, Mr. Sihle Zikalala, coming out from the session with the Ad Hoc Committee there, Policy.